In India, joint families frequently blame early miscarriages on a mother's diet, heavy lifting, or bumpy auto rickshaw rides. When seeking answers, the classic medical investigation often stops at a standard male semen analysis, which usually delivers a passing, perfectly normal result. This standard test relies on three superficial metrics. It checks if the total count is above 15 million sperm per milliliter, observes their outward physical shape, and measures how fast they swim forward. But this creates a dangerous illusion. The semen analysis only proves that the delivery vehicle has a working engine. It tells us absolutely nothing about whether the invisible genetic cargo locked inside the sperm head is intact or smashed to pieces. We call this microscopic destruction DNA fragmentation. It is the hidden genetic damage caused by recreational toxins like tobacco and alcohol, damage that standard laboratory microscopes simply cannot see. Bed rest and dietary restrictions for the mother cannot stop a genetic collapse. If a man's lifestyle severely damages his sperm's DNA, the resulting pregnancy is biologically predetermined to fail from the very first day. This chart traces a reverse chronology timeline, starting with a clinical miscarriage, which typically occurs between 6 and 8 weeks and is confirmed by an ultrasound showing a stopped fetal heartbeat. This is distinct from a chemical pregnancy, which fails just days after a positive test. To understand why this happens, we move backward to day 5. At this stage, the embryo should be a blastocyst, a rapidly dividing ball of roughly 100 cells. But because it failed to form properly, it results in a weak or entirely failed implantation. Moving back to day 3 reveals the exact crisis point where this cell division abruptly halts. We call this embryonic genome activation. Before day 3, the growing embryo coasts entirely on the mother's cellular energy reserves. But on day 3, it switches over to reading the father's DNA blueprint to build the next phase of life. Because the sperm's DNA is shattered, the biological instructions are unreadable, and the cells stop dividing. The origin of this failure traces all the way back to day 1. Immediately after fertilization, the maternal egg cell, or oocyte, utilizes its powerful repair enzymes in a desperate attempt to stitch the shattered paternal DNA back together. If the man's DNA fragmentation index is under 15%, the egg can successfully repair the minor damage. But if that index rises above 30%, the massive volume of shattered genetic material entirely overwhelms the egg's repair machinery. A day 3 embryonic arrest is never a failure of the woman's body. It is the direct, unavoidable mechanical consequence of heavily fragmented paternal DNA acting as a faulty foundation. Whether it is chain-smoking cigarettes or chewing gutkha and pan masala, tobacco floods the bloodstream with heavily concentrated carcinogens and heavy metals, specifically cadmium and lead. This woven cellular mesh is the blood-testes barrier. It is a highly specialized wall designed to filter out systemic poisons and protect developing sperm. However, the heavy metals found in tobacco are molecularly small enough to easily breach this protective zone. Once inside, these toxins generate massive amounts of reactive oxygen species. This hyperactive molecular rust aggressively eats away at the protective fatty membrane surrounding the sperm and ruthlessly attacks the DNA inside. Simultaneously, the active nicotine attacks protamines. These are the specialized structural proteins designed to tightly wind and protect the DNA like a spool of heavy thread. When protamines fail under this stress, they leave the genetic strands loose, unspooled, and highly vulnerable to tearing. A daily intake of just 10 milligrams of nicotine actively constricts the intricate blood vessels supplying the testicles, severely starving the developing sperm of the vital oxygen they need to build intact DNA. The cultural habit of light smoking, vaping, or daily tobacco chewing leads directly to these unspooled, torn genetic strands, guaranteeing a day 3 embryonic failure. This split screen shows the biological feedback loop between the liver and the testicles. Heavy weekend binge drinking, consuming more than 5 standard drinks per week, acts as a central nervous system depressant that disrupts this critical communication pathway. When the liver's metabolic pathways are jammed by processing large volumes of alcohol, it begins to improperly convert the man's natural circulating testosterone into estrogen. This abnormal spike in circulating estrogen sends a false signal to the brain, instructing it to stop stimulating the testicles and effectively shutting down the entire sperm production assembly line. Looking strictly at the testicles, the damage compounds. Alcohol metabolites directly paralyze the specialized Leydig cells, causing testosterone levels strictly inside the scrotum to plummet. Without these extremely high levels of local testosterone, the Sertoli nurse cells cannot adequately feed or mature the growing sperm. The result is morphological failure, producing sperm with abnormally large heads or completely broken genetic cores. A single weekend binge acutely suppresses local testicular function for up to 72 hours, altering the male hormonal landscape and guaranteeing the release of genetically broken sperm. Traditional Indian diets, rich in powerful antioxidants like haldi and amla, are biologically incapable of outpacing the daily cellular destruction caused by heavy drinking and tobacco use. Unlike women, who are born with all their eggs, men continuously produce new sperm through a process called spermatogenesis. From a basic germ cell to a fully swimming entity, creating a brand new sperm cell takes exactly 72 to 74 days. The first 50 days occur in the seminiferous tubules. This is the physical construction phase. Any toxic exposure here permanently malforms the sperm's head and tail before it is even fully grown. The final 24 days occur inside the epididymis. This is the delicate DNA compaction phase, where acute binge drinking will shatter the genetic strands just days prior to ejaculation. This biological reality means quitting smoking for a week does absolutely nothing. The factory floor is still actively processing cells that were poisoned weeks earlier. Achieving an optimal DNA fragmentation index requires an uncompromised, strict 3-month cessation of all toxins to repair the blood-testes barrier, flush accumulated heavy metals, and complete a full 74-day clean cycle. If you and your partner have experienced early miscarriages, chemical pregnancies, or if there is a history of male recreational substance use, you must adjust your approach to diagnosis. The male partner must take full accountability and step beyond the false security provided by a routine, single-page semen analysis. You must consult your doctor and specifically request a DNA fragmentation index test, utilizing advanced laboratory assays like SCSA, HALO, or TUNEL to expose the hidden genetic damage. Recurrent early miscarriages are not a vague, female-centric mystery. They are often a predictable, preventable paternal issue solved by exact clinical testing and lifestyle accountability.